Wrong one.
Okay, here we go.
This is Governor Bobber. I like good day, doctors.
George Allen here. Good day, doctors.
Hey, this is Governor Chris Christie from New Jersey. Good day, doctors.
Go! You're watching Dr. Politics.
It is Friday, June 7th, the day after the 80th anniversary of D-Day. Welcome, everyone, to Dr. Politics and Political Architecture. We are joined by Don Irvine and David Shepard. Dr. Thornton is still on assignment, long-term assignment. I think we'll see him in a while.
He's with a patient.
But, yes. And all is good. This is, let's just out the gate. Let me just say, I was rather impressed with Joe Biden's speech on D-Day. I was expecting the word. Maybe that's what it is. You know, like when you take a test or exam in high school and you think you've done horrible, and you get it back and you only have you get like a A- or a B+ on it. And it's like, hey, that wasn't so bad,
Yeah.
Maybe, a broken clock is right twice a day.
Your experience was different than mine. Whenever I thought I did horrible, I realized I did horrible. And even worse than I thought.
Really? See, I've always done
I was being optimistic with horribles.
I remember once I got like a 97, and I don't know why I put down Lebanon. I meant to put down Libya, because and I was trying to convince him I am a horrible spell. I just misspelled Libya. And basically the reason was the previous question, the essay was about Lebanon and the barracks bombing. And I think what it was, when I was thinking about that, then we got to Libyan air defense, Libya, the attack on Tripoli. I had Lebanon stuck in my head, and that's how that happened. But I was rather, Don, what do you think? I was a little impressed with Joey B's little speech.
I guess he did okay. I mean, his voice.
He had a good teleprompter.
Yeah, his voice isn't as strong. You can definitely see some physical decline that way. But I mean, I guess he held his own. I mean, there was a lot of film footage about whether or not he was confused or not. And sometimes I always wonder, it's like, okay, was that the actual footage, or was that some of the something that was edited to make him look worse than it really was?
Yeah.
But
I think he looks pretty bad. I mean, he's not a young man. I mean, he's
younger than the D-Day veterans.
That is true. That is true. Yeah, he's a Vietnam era kid.
Yeah,
actually, he's actually the skip generation that was too young for World War II, too old for Korea and Vietnam.
Yeah, that was like my father. My father fell in right in between Korea and Vietnam because by Vietnam he was too old. Korea,
yeah, the skip generation.
Yeah.
Your dad was probably born what, in the
30s.
late 20s? Oh,
36, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I kept thinking about these D-Day veterans, and I thought, I wonder if we put them side by side with Biden and asked them a bunch of questions, how the veterans, these 90-year-olds plus, would do.
I think some of those guys looked pretty good they looked better than Joe Biden did.
Yeah, but I do think it's true. I do think it's the greatest generation, and you start to look back at days like these, and you kind of realize how amazing that was. Because the Rangers were scaling the cliffs while the Germans were shooting down on them.
Mm-hmm.
And you wonder if today, would people do that? It's just amazing what they went through to liberate Europe. And I just don't know if we'd still have that same spirit. Maybe.
Yeah,
Was it
I
last
think a
year
lot of
that-
them they were going to really be sacrificial lambs, right?
Yeah,
This
that's
was-
what I'm saying.
And then that's right. So that's I don't know that would happen in today. I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of self-preservation in there, and
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But in just
Hey,
other
was it-
ways, it was a great generation. It was a great generation in so many other ways. You got to admit, they
Was it last year that Milley said there were 137 troops stormed the beaches and we had over 600 ships? Or something. I think it was last year, or maybe the year before Milley was doing the speech for D-Day, and he got it all wrong. I know he probably meant 137,000, which is still a wrong number, but that's a more realistic number than closer.
Well, the thing with the speech is, I think Biden, he did fine and all, but it was a great opportunity and sort of lost. Remember, Reagan's speech was one of his greatest of his career, and that speech really helped make him,
Actually, President Reagan's best speech ever was the Challenger speech.
Yeah, that was beautiful too. That was a great
the
one.
best speech he's ever.
Yeah. The Challenger was very good.
and that was like that because that was a non-political speech. Obviously, Time for Choosing was his very best speech.
Yeah, and Boyce of Point Tahoe, his D-Day Normandy speech was amazing. So that was great.
Yeah,
And I thought his inauguration speech of '81 was a great speech.
He topped every one of his speeches with another one.
Yeah, he was very good. He was very good. Yeah.
he had good speech writers, and he knew how to deliver the speeches, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And we really haven't seen that since then. How many other memorable speeches can we say for a lot of?
I hate to say this and admit this, but I think Bill Clinton comes the closest to Reagan-esque in speech delivery, frankly.
Yeah, probably.
He's a good talker. He can deliver a speech.
Yeah. I think of the great communicators, you got Reagan, and then on the other side, I think you're right, Obama and Clinton would be.
I think Clinton was better than Obama, frankly. I think Clinton was
probably.
better.
I think so. And I think on our side, W was one of the worst, I guess. HW could mangle things too.
President Nixon gave a really good speech.
Nixon was good. My understanding is Nixon learned a lot from Billy Graham in terms of style. He tried to emulate Billy Graham of all people. And Trump can give a good speech occasionally as well. So.
He gives good speeches. And I think George W. Bush gave some great speeches. The speech he gave after 9/11. The speech he gave the day of 9/11.
And he did Reagan's eulogy. I thought he did pretty good at that as well.
So he's a good talker too. And I think locally, I'd say Bob Ehrlich is probably one of the best orator governors we've ever had in Maryland. Frankly, and
Spiro Agnew could give a good speech.
Yeah, he was actually really good too. Actually, Spiro Agnew was good, but Ehrlich is better.
The nattering nabobs and negativity.
Yeah. And a funny story about Spiro Agnew is my friend Ray Kroll, his wife, and Judy and Ted go out dancing. And Ted Agnew would always yell at Ray, "You're holding my wife too tight." And Ray's response was, "Well, you can hold my wife too tight if you want." That was a different era for people.
I don't think I ever heard Larry Hogan give a speech, though, but I guess he's fine. I don't.
Yeah, he's good, And I tell you, I think personally, in Maryland, Democrats-wise, I think William Donald Schaefer used to give good speeches. Harry Hughes is another good speech orator amongst Democrats in Maryland.
He was good.
Yeah. He was a Democrat, unfortunately, but he didn't like he was a Democrat that didn't like the lottery.
Okay.
He comes from Caroline County, and he goes, "I know what abject poverty looks like." And
Right.
it's really bad that when people who are living in poverty are spending, $20 to $50 that they don't have on lottery tickets.
Yeah.
But
that's a good point. But I think most people play lottery. I don't think it's mostly by the poor, though. I may be wrong, but I think it's
a
probably
tax on the
middle class,
poor.
working class people that
Dave,
pay.
the lottery and casinos is a tax on the poor.
Huh?
It's a tax on the poor. Because look, you or I or Don, we go to a casino, we take $200 aside, say we're going to bet that, and then if you're me, once you double that, you stop gambling, whether you still have $100 in your pocket or nothing.
Yeah.
You double it, you just walk away at that point because you've already got
Easier
one
said
over
than
on the
done.
ball.
It's easier said than done. If you feel you're on a hot streak, you probably just keep going.
I don't. I know in this. I don't.
But you got good discipline if you can stop after that. I'm saying probably most people just keep going.
Do you, Susan? Do you have to buy magazines for that? Even though they say you don't have to.
Yeah.
What was the other one? The Competitive Publishers Clearinghouse. The one Ed McMahon and Alex Trebek.
Publishers Clearinghouse, right?
No, that was Dick Clark. Ed McMahon had another one. And I want to say Robin Leach used to have one too, didn't he?
Yeah, those days are getting pretty fuzzy in my mind when we used to see those numerous television commercials for all that stuff.
Yeah. I had a guy the other day come to the house trying to sell magazine subscriptions. That was interesting.
You sure he wasn't casing your house out to be robbed later?
I don't know, but that's interesting. I kind of thought we were pretty much done with magazines, really, other than maybe online or electronic. But I still get, I don't have it with me, but I still get the National Review, the magazine version.
You still get that magazine after the,
I could probably get it online and buy a subscription, but I still end up buying the magazine version, the paper.
By the way, hey Don, I think you'd appreciate this. That's what you did. I used to get the Washington Post delivered at my house, right? I've been trying to stop the paper since April. They finally stopped the paper this month. Like I remember when I said, when I can't go, why? I go, well, you want me to be blunt or you want me to be nice? I'll be blunt. I'll tell you, your anti-Trump propaganda you keep peddling is the reason why I don't want to get your paper anymore.
That's right.
And they're like, but lo and behold, I'm still not off their subscription list. Now I finally got off, but it should not be that hard. I mean, are subscription sales to the Washington Post that bad where they got to just keep people on just so they can justify having a print edition?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they're subsidized now. I suppose that if it weren't for Bezos, they'd be like a lot of papers.
They couldn't survive. I mean, that was the thing that came out after that, after Sally Busby left, was just that they had lost $73 million last year.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you don't have a billionaire backing you, you can't go on very long with that whole thing. And I mean, I pay $29 a year for the online version of the Post, so I can get access to articles that they would have put behind a firewall otherwise. So paywall.
Well, what's their expression? If you don't get it, you don't get it.
Yeah. So that's mainly
the Washington Post is now Democracy Dies in Darkness.
I guess that's right now. It's Democracy Dies in Darkness. I guess.
Right. Which is funny to me because they put that in really after Trump was elected.
Trump, yeah.
And here we are 3.5 years into the Biden administration, and they've just left that up on their masthead. And I thought, okay, so is that still the message you want to push out there and with a Democrat administration? Okay,
the response to that is democracy dies when you prosecute your opponent. How about that one?
Was it Ben Bradley, the old guy at the Washington Post? The paper's changed since I had to say it. Ben Bradley his articles would not be welcomed in today's Washington Post, I think. some of the stuff
Yeah.
he's done back in the 80s and 70s, I don't think, but I think
Yeah, I mean the
that's
standards were
probably,
higher. I think the standards were higher. I think it was still liberal paper, but I don't think it was nakedly so.
do you guys remember the Washington Star at all, Don? Do you remember that? We used to get that.
Yeah.
That was the evening paper.
I remember that. It
We
was
used
an
to get
evening
that.
paper. Yeah, it was an
We
evening
used to get
paper.
that in the Post. And I remember in high school class, yeah, Washington had a conservative paper, but it failed. The Washington Star. I'm like, the Washington Star was not a conservative newspaper.
Yeah.
It was just like the Post. It was not as liberal as the Post, so that makes it the conservative paper,
Yeah.
Yeah, well, when you have the Post as the big, gorilla or whatever, dominating the subscriptions and the whole, mindset, any paper that goes out there can probably can be just a tad more, to the right, just go toward even to a
Yeah.
center, and they'll be considered conservative. I mean, that was part of the problem too, right, Dwight? I mean, so the Washington Times started in 1982.
Yeah.
And then they scooped up a bunch of people that used to work for the Star,
Mm-hmm.
and my father was kind of like, oh, well, this isn't, they were doing this because they wanted credibility, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
they still had that Unification Church affiliation hanging over them. So they hired all these Star people to try to give them credibility, but they hired a lot of the liberal, Star people. So it's like, here's a conservative paper run by the Unification Church, but they went ahead and hired liberals to work in their newsroom and whatnot, because they wanted to try to show the world that, we're not a tool of the Unification Church. And, it took years, if not decades, for them to really eventually purge some of those people before the paper really became much more conservative from top to bottom.
I hated their location though, Don. The Washington Times. I remember we used to have to drive the articles over on a floppy disk because they didn't have email or a fax machine to transfer.
Yeah, 3600 New York Avenue is not a place I want to drive to.
Yeah, no, probably not.
I drove there a couple of times because your dad would have a column, I guess, over the weekend because it was always like a Friday or something like that.
Yeah.
And the good days would be when your dad would have the article ready at 10 a.m. The bad days is when Patty Lasky at 4:30 is looking for somebody to drive to the Washington.
Yeah, he was. Sometimes the articles would come out really late in the day for him.
Yeah.
But part of that too is, you just have, he, especially I think, once he jumped from, using the old IBM Selectric, where he could make corrections and use correction tape and whatnot, but you would limit yourself onto how many times you're going to revise something because you're dealing with the typewriter. Once he got a computer, it just changed. You can just revise and revise and revise.
And you have Patty Lasky saying,
like a plague.
You should say it this way, and then
never
go
did
back.
anything else.
Yeah. Then Patty Lasky would say, "Oh, you should do it this way," and then he'll go back and change it. So he goes, "Yeah, you're right. That does sound better." So between Patty Lasky and your dad.
Yeah, I don't know how people did it with a typewriter. Honestly, I was coming up towards the tail end. We started having a word processor, and word processor makes it so much easier. But I've been told by a writer once who said that he's very old school. He writes longhand, and he says he thinks it helps his writing because you think differently when you don't have to keep making changes all the time. So when you write longhand, maybe there's a certain different thought that goes into it.
Honestly, I think Governor Ehrlich does it. He does longhand writing also when he does his books.
Sometimes you can actually make it worse with constant revisions anyway, because
that's right.
You start to overthink it.
Yeah.
Right.
And as I tell everyone, perfect is the enemy of good enough. That's a mantra the federal government lives by. Good enough for government work.
That's true. I'm old. Remember in college we'd have the blue books, and so we do writing essays, and you wouldn't do it. You do it right there. You wouldn't be working on a word processor. It's like, here's your pen, here's your book, and start writing it. So,
and I kind of like that because one, I could easily fill up a blue book.
Because they say Reagan would do that. He'd write longhand, and when he'd like travel on the plane, he'd have a yellow legal pad, and they would say
Right.
he just would start writing things down and writing speeches.
But do you remember the Washington Post did an article on Katja Bullock about how when she came to the White House, they were using those manual typewriters, like the Olivettis that our friend Bob Anderson used to love, the Olivetti typewriters we had. And she was talking how everyone was excited when they got an electric typewriter for the first time.
But I gotta say, it's really impressive, and it doesn't really happen that often. But if you were to get a letter typewritten, that'd really be pretty cool. I would think that'd be quite an honor if someone would bother to type up a letter.
Yeah, and I mean, although when I was in high school, when I was doing my letters to colleges, I did a form letter.
Okay.
I did a form letter. Dear college administrator, send me a copy. Send me your application and any. Basically, I just ask for a college application and any pertinent brochures on your courses and your faculty and stuff like that. Back then, it was only mail was only 25 cents or maybe a little bit more than that. It was like maybe 28 cents, maybe 30 cents, 33 cents. That's what it was.
Okay.
Back in the late 1980s, it was like 33
I think
cents.
I remember that. Yeah.
And it was pretty cheap to do. Now, like 60 cents to mail something out. Or is it 60
Yeah.
cents, actually, I think.
It's 68 going to 73 next month.
I gotta go buy some Forever stamps.
That's right.
Yeah.
July 12th, I think, is the increase or something like
Why
that.
are they raising it? Why are they raising the rates?
So I mean, they have a new procedure for the Postal Service, which is basically they look at inflation and they adjust their prices twice a year now. And they used to only adjust them maybe every 2 or 3 years, but
right. Yeah.
And yet they can't deliver the mail
inflation's been
consistently.
going crazy, and the Postal Service still is just hamstrung with a lot of costs that they can't. They're just an inefficient operation. So these things are going up and up.
Here's something about the post office. They do deliveries for Amazon on Sundays, some of them, right? They're out there working and really pushing the mail for Sunday, and they're really getting the stuff out on Sundays.
Yeah.
But Monday to Saturday, I mean, do you ever go a day or 2 days without any mail in your mailbox? And then I've seen that happen. And then all of a sudden, I get like a million pieces of mail. So I have a feeling they don't even deliver the mail every single day. They all knock off at the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can always sign up for the on the USPS website.
Yeah, I've got that too.
And that's fairly accurate in terms of what you're going to see in your mailbox. If it's a larger envelope, they're usually not going to be able to scan that or whatever. But as long as it's a regular size one, and it's like now, what am I getting? I'm getting several pitches, for Medicare Advantage and things like that. I get a few other things. I mean, like everybody else, so there's a lot of online bill delivery and things like that happen. So my mailbox, which used to get stuffed with all kinds of things, stockholder reports and who knows what, it's a trickle now, which actually makes it kind of easy because it's like, if I go away, I suspend delivery and just have them, then just tell them to deliver it, the day I'm returning. And it still barely fills my mailbox.
Yeah. I mean, I get the bulk of the stuff I get is from realtors, the people that want to buy my house. I get stuff from the cruise. I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm that age demographic, that people who like to cruise. I get like cruising magazines, not magazines, but stuff from Celebrity and various other cruise lines. Viking sends me stuff, and I've got no interest in going on a cruise. Stop sending me this stuff. I got a lot of stuff from, I get stuff from AIM, but I did unsubscribe from them. So hopefully that'll stop the mail coming in. I get a lot of stuff.
I get political mail. I assume you get political mail.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, when the
I
political
get stuff from Riley, everyone from Riley Gaines to Donald Trump to Newt Gingrich to all these people.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Yeah, plenty of those. Yeah, the Postal Service, they've unveiled, like, I guess, what is it, kind of an updated design for mailboxes, ones that are bigger, right?
Yeah,
So,
they want us to switch by
right.
2026, I think, or 2027.
They want everybody to switch. It's like at our own expense, right? It's like you're asking people to get a bigger box so that they can put the little packages in there.
Yeah.
But you're not doing anything to help.
They're helping us fight the war on the porch pirates.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny.
I've got cameras that helps me fight the war on porch pirates a lot better than a bigger mailbox. And I was reading where they were saying, these mailboxes haven't been redesigned since the 1950s.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking like, yeah, but there's nothing. I mean, it's not much. What is it? It's not like a car where you gotta look for the new 2025 models of the mailbox, and you might want to, you've already gotten 100,000. You've got your 100,000th mail is coming, so you need to go do an overhaul or get a new mailbox. I mean, really, it's a mailbox for crying out loud.
I wouldn't think a house mailbox needs to be bigger. The difference is I've lived in apartments before where they had pretty small mail slots, so I could understand that. But some places you can put the mail right through the chute if they have a spot for it. You can slip the mail in right in there.
The door, I highly recommend against people doing that. Because those mail slots, somebody could slip a canister of tear gas in there.
Yeah,
they could throw a vial of anthrax. So I don't like those through the door mails.
Those used to be fairly common, when we were growing up, and you don't see too many of those anymore. And look, I mean, it was a little bit of a shock, I think, to me initially when I got married and moved, and living in my parents' house all that time, where the mailbox was attached to the house, with a little, like, a thing there for the magazines, stuff like that. And then I'm like, what? Oh, they're going to deliver it to the curb in a mailbox.
But I must say, I think they've gotten better over the years. When we were kids, I mean, they went through that period, like in the 70s, 80s. I mean, they stunk, but I think they've gotten a lot better. And part of that is because of the competition from the package delivery services. And so they have gotten better. And so when people say, when they make jibes about government being run like the post office, I think there are worse examples, such as the way the Washington Metro works, and there are other bureaucracies that you can say, well, that works. That's far less efficient than the mail system. So,
and they've been trying to cut their costs by trying to eliminate Saturday delivery.
Why don't they do that? I mean, stop saying it. Just stop Saturday delivery. It's not the end of the world,
Yeah, I mean, businesses push back because they said, money would come in, on Saturday, then they would have to wait till like Monday. But think once again, this society has changed so much that how much mail is coming to a business on a Saturday? Probably not that much. Bill payment. If you're expecting to get money, a lot of companies now are just making electronic payments to you, right? So it's not even something that is happening with a physical check anymore. So I do, I think, my first, at first I thought, oh man, I would miss my mail on Saturday, but since my mail has trickled down so much, I'm like, there would be a darn bit of difference if I had to wait till Monday to get mail anymore.
Yeah.
If you're really that concerned about things, get a PO box or something like that and go collect your mail that way. I mean, I could see the day where they go from that 6 day a week to 5 day a week, and maybe they cut it back to 4, because first class mail delivery, that volume has just dropped like a rock, right? I mean, it's way down.
Well, here's it. When I was getting into the workforce, I would craft a resume, design the resume, put it together, put it in an envelope, and send it out, and hope that somebody, when it lands on somebody's desk, it's interesting enough to look at that they look at it for more than 10 seconds. And now there's no human eyes looking at these resumes, and I don't like these new resumes because they all look the same. There's nothing unique about it. There's nothing that stands out. I kind of like it when somebody mails me their resume every so often. I don't think I've gotten a mailed resume in over 10 years, but I do like seeing creativity, And I do like the physical paper, because you remember, Don, Dave, back in the days, you had special paper for resumes. It was cotton-bound paper.
Yeah.
And you get all sorts of paper, types of papers. And Kinko's made a lot of money selling that kind of fancy paper.
Yeah.
They'd sell like a pack of 20 sheets of resume paper for like $20 or something insane like that.
Yeah, it wasn't like the standard paper you just shove in the copier.
Yeah.
Right.
And do you remember when we had copiers, we had two trays? You had the legal and you had
Yep.
the regular. And I was coming up at a time where they really stopped using legal paper. I don't really, but we still had the slot for it. But I
Yeah.
don't recall seeing.
Well, we
anything
still
like
use legal paper for legal documents. Like when I
Yeah.
had my will redrawn recently, it was all legal sized.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Well, I still have the office copier because we use it for printing the campus report here at home.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, but that requires 11 by 17 paper.
Yeah.
That's how. So we've got 3 trays, for the machine. But the other side of it is that paper like that becomes harder to find or more expensive. The price of copy paper like that has just skyrocketed. And then when I can find a halfway decent deal, I would just buy a bunch. So I've got cartons of 11 by 17 paper all throughout my house.
Yeah.
And it's like what do you call? I remember when I started working in Alec, I was so impressed by their copier. They had a copier that rotated and stapled everything for you.
Yeah.
But that thing always broke all the time.
Double-sided copies, stapled, folded, all kinds of stuff, right?
Yeah.
We had a Pitney Bowes machine too. I remember when I was an intern for Dark Hair, we had a Pitney Bowes machine, which is like everybody was excited that we had a Pitney Bowes machine.
Yeah, I did some work on a mailroom. We had the same thing. We had the Pitney Bowes.
Yeah, I mean, Pitney Bowes was the kind of the king of postage machines.
I don't know.
Pitney Bowes is still in business, but they once again, mail volumes down, right? You have people who are working from home. What has become pretty popular is things like stamps.com, right?
Yeah.
Because they have an agreement with the postal service. So, who needs a Pitney Bowes machine, in their house or home for postage? You just do, just go ahead and use stamps.com or have a roll of stamps or whatever, and just deal with it that way.
Yeah.
And I think one of the
you remember, it reminds me of doing mailings and campaigns where we had so many stamps and envelopes to seal. And then you remember the stampers, you fill it with water.
Yeah.
And they had a sponge like on top, and you just.
I have a few here in the house somewhere.
I remember doing those. And it was kind of messy because it would get all wet, as you're sealing up.
I remember glue sticks when they were like, I thought that was like the greatest
That's
thing.
right.
They just take the glue
I remember the glue
sticks.
sticks,
But I tell you, there was
and
a time
not to interrupt, but the campaigns that really were awash in cash would have the adhesive envelopes. So that's more expensive, self-adhesive. We just pull the strip and
Pull the strip, yeah.
But you have to watch out. You get a nasty paper cut from those strips too.
Yeah.
See, this is a whole generation that doesn't understand what a paper cut is either, frankly, I think.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they're not doing that anymore.
Yeah,
they're still sending out mail, but it's not like before.
I mean, I probably should have checked with my printer the last time I ordered envelopes for the campus report, saying like, what's the difference between the price of the standard gummed envelope versus versus like the self seal kind of a thing like that. My wife probably would appreciate it because she's when it's ready and written, she's the one who prints it out, gets it folded, and stuffed it in the envelope. Luckily, there's only a few hundred of those. But I'm trying to. When you mentioned sealing them, I was like, I don't remember how she's sealing them these days. I think she was using that whole little bottle thing before, but I don't think she liked that. I think she's doing something different.
Well, there was a lady that used to. She was at the Women's Federation. She took a paper towel, would wet it, and just she liked that better than the sponge.
This guy used to brag that he'd line up like 5 of them, and then he just do it all at once. Kind of, he just run the sponge across all 5. You know who? If they're watching this show right now, is demanding to call in Richard Viggory. You should have Viggory on your direct line.
He's been on direct line. He was on there not too long ago. Yeah.
Yeah, Viggory could tell you all the stories about direct mail. And
I mean, I remember you'd have to before, because I would say it's like the Allen campaign. We used to do the folding of the letters ourselves.
Yeah.
When we do the the mailings. Because mail houses weren't. I mean, they were expensive. I mean, printing was very expensive back in the 90s. Now color is become very cheap,
Right.
Color is very inexpensive. It's I mean, we're now doing programs like for the Bob Ehrlich Dinner and the Ellen Sauber Dinner. The program was all done in color,
Yeah.
And it's
when I print my flyers, if I go to Kinko's and print flyers, it is cheaper for me to do black and white though, and they will charge me a bit more for color copies. So I can do black and white for the folder. It's not that important for my flyers, but I did notice it is more expensive.
You should go to Staples. It's cheaper to do color at Staples.
Oh, really? Okay.
I mean, they used to. I mean, they used to charge like 75 cents a page for color. I don't know what they're charging now commercially.
Yeah, it's not cheap really. I've noticed it's not cheap to print up a whole bunch of flyers.
Yeah, and you got to find the open Staples still.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
went to the my typical Staples on Rockville Pike.
Yeah,
I went there, Don, and I saw they had a whole bunch. They're moving stuff around. I'm like, you're not going to shut this store down or this store down, right? She goes, no, we're just moving stuff around in the store.
Okay.
Well, it's like you got to work.
But you're right. The one Staples I used to use is closed, at least one, and there may be 2.
Yeah, I mean, Staples and Office Depot they had a really great run for a long time, and then things kind of slowed down, and Amazon started eating into their business and other things like that, and but they started to have to pull back, and they had mergers. I mean, Office Max was another competitor. So
remember Jacob Gardner and Jeans, those 2 office supply places?
Jacob's Gardner, yeah, that was fun.
I liked them. I used to buy my mechanical pencils from them because they were not like your typical store where they'd have them sitting there. You have to order from the catalog and come back a few days later to pick up, because they would charge to mail them to your house. So that was kind of funny, because aren't they being mailed to you? Why can't you just tell them to mail it to my house? But it was a lot of fun. Those were the days, so to speak. But speaking of, before we get into the real serious stuff, Pat Sajak's going to be, today's his last show. Congratulations. Yeah. Perhaps he will think about running for governor in 2026 of the great state of Maryland. He is, after all, a resident of Severna Park. And I think he'd be a good governor. Yeah.
Well, there's talk about him in the past. He didn't run then, but you think he might run?
Well, that was back. He had a show, and he was making a lot of money. So
that's true.
Now he's retired. He's just collecting residuals. But that is like that. Those 2 shows, Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy, are basically the legacy of Merv Griffin.
Yeah,
that's his legacy. I don't think he's ever. I think that's the show that's been probably the best show around for the longest time. Merv Griffin. I mean, I think he had a talk show at one point or something like that, or a nighttime show like Johnny Carson.
Yeah, Merv. Yeah, he was big. Yeah, Merv Griffin.
He had a show. Yeah, he has.
Sajak. Yeah, briefly, Sajak had a show.
Yeah, and he was also the anti-Donald. Remember him and Donald Trump used to have a rivalry in Atlantic City.
Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah.
He was.
They had a deal
Yeah.
on something, and Trump said how he got the better of Merv on something. I don't know what it was.
Yeah, but yeah.
You know, Merv and Nancy Reagan were friends. They were
Yes.
close.
Well, the Reagans were also close with Merv.
Yeah, that's right. Merv was great. Yeah,
Yeah.
Merv Griffin was great. But with Sajak, you know, he still looks good because he was on since I was a kid, I think. And he still looks pretty good.
Vanna White looks good.
Oh, yeah. Vanna was always great. I agree. Just think she made a fortune turning letters, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, wow. I don't know what it was about that show, but it would come on when my father was cooking dinner, like 7:30, and it annoyed the heck out of him. He would hear "wheel," oh, you know, the whole intro of the show.
Yeah.
And my father would get, turn that off. I don't know why, but there's something about it that always irritated my father. So,
Well, basically, we used to call it Jeopardy for dumb people.
okay, yeah. I don't know what it was.
Yeah. I mean, Jeopardy. But I mean, those two shows. I mean, I can't believe that Wheel of Fortune is the longest running game show. I figured Price is Right because they've been around for a lot longer than.
Yeah, I thought
Wheel of
Price is
Fortune.
Right would have been. I remember the Bob Barker days.
Yeah.
The great Bob Barker, and you know how he'd finish get your pet spayed and neutered.
Yeah.
Good old Bob. But he was a good man, a good guy, good cause, I think, and he lasted a long time. Bob was with us. He died not too long ago, but he's got to be.
They tried
one of
to
the
cancel
kings.
him at one point. Remember, because he was anti-fur or something like that.
That's right.
Yeah, that's
in one
true.
of the pageants, so he kind of walked away from one of the pageants that he used to host. But also, yeah, I mean, so Don, you weren't here last week, but President Trump was, that kangaroo court was convicted with all 34 counts. And I don't know if you saw the Washington Post cover. They had every single count, guilty. That and I think like that is a little over the top for the Post.
I saw that. Yeah.
And reactions to that.
Well, and I was commenting, Don, that if this doesn't sink Trump, and it looks like at least from the early polling it hasn't, I don't know what will. I mean, I don't know what Biden's got. It's like dropping a nuke. It's like the nuke is the convictions, and if that doesn't destroy him, yeah, I think he's home free. But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's been interesting, right? Is that the initial polling, after the conviction, has shown a very little movement towards Biden.
Mm-hmm.
It's not enough to move the needle to say that this is going to help the Democrats, right? And I think part of that is because people look at this and they're like, I don't understand how this happened. I mean, if you've got the CNN legal analysts out there and they're like, this was not a federal crime. Alvin Bragg made it a federal crime, but these are actually, misdemeanors at best. So, these charges are completely bogus in that sense. Trump he's got to wait his turn, right? He's got to wait for the sentencing, and then they can appeal and all these kind of things like that. So there's still more to come with all of this. But the fact that things are not really moving the Democrats' way after this, Alvin Bragg, got his pound of flesh technically by the fact that he got the convictions that he wanted. But I think that's going to be a kind of a Pyrrhic victory in the end, because I don't think this is going to hold up on appeal. And for the Democrats who are trying to bring down Trump, it's not really going to work. And I think we'd already seen a lot of that beforehand. All these cases, nothing has really changed public opinion in general, at least based on polling, right? That if anything else, Trump is more popular than he was before. I don't think Trump would be in this race and it would have cleared the deck so early if it really wasn't for all of this stuff. I mean, I think all these legal cases propelled him to the top.
And you also saw it, Don.
How much money did they raise? $53 million or
Yeah.
something like that?
I think it's like 200 million was over the weekend. They got 200
right.
million.
When you add in all the various groups and whatever, so
Yeah.
this is a huge haul for Trump campaign and affiliated, organizations, which is, kind of mind-boggling. And then Trump is, I mean, they're actually looking at, doing more in New York. I don't think they necessarily think that they can win it, but they would make the Democrats spend some money in New York.
Yeah, that's an expensive meeting.
Spending it,
Yeah.
and that, actually Trump in New York, while he probably wouldn't win, he might be able to help some of the Republicans down ticket who are going to be in some pretty tough battles. So that would be a positive.
And the latest numbers show he's within like 6% is the only thing that separates him from Joe Biden, which is for a Democrat in New York only be 6. It's like, I mean, there's no equivalent Republican states that are, because we got to fight for every vote as a Republican.
Yeah, it's like being Trump's up by 6 in Arkansas or Utah or something. It's like, that's not good. But I would also point out, in case of Virginia, it's basically tied. In the case of New Hampshire, I'm hearing it's tied. So Biden, even if he wins both those, will still have to spend some money there. Which I
mean, and he's got a lot more ground. He has to defend Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. And now it looks like he's going to have to play defense in New York a little bit.
Yeah,
which is
New Jersey's maybe New Jersey.
New Jersey, actually, I think New Jersey may go our way because you got Bob Menendez is running as an independent for the U.S. Senate from New Jersey.
That's right.
You've got who is the Democrat? Is it the daughter? Because I know Menendez's daughter wanted to run for that seat.
No, it's a Representative Andy Kim won the primary for the Democrats, and he's very annoyed that Menendez was planning to run as independent. Now Menendez, he's turned in a petition. I think he needed 800 signatures. He has 2,400. They've got to verify the validity of the signatures, but if they do, he's on the ballot. And I mean, the guy's been under a cloud for a long time, but he's always won re-election. So he's definitely going to be if he's going to draw from the Democrat side of things, which may be, it might give the Republican challenger a chance to win that seat. So Democrats, I mean, they're definitely on the defensive. They already had to defend more seats in the Senate.
They're having to defend Maryland. Maryland's another one they weren't counting on, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, Hogan jumping into the race changes the dynamic. But I still think with Hogan, as much as I wanted Republican senators, is that, he seems to be, his market is, I'm looking for independents, unaffiliated, and then disgruntled Democrats or Democrats who like me as governor, and hoping that some Republicans will say, we want to control the Senate, so we'll vote for you.
Actually, every Republican should be voting for Larry Hogan. Look, do I agree with Larry Hogan 100% of the time? No, I probably agree with Larry Hogan about 45, maybe 50% of the time. But I disagree with Angela also Brooks 100% of the time.
Right. No, I mean, that's part of the thing is that, look, Larry Hogan, he's gonna be somewhere in that Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, Mitt Romney, kind of thing, where you cannot count on his vote for all Republican legislation. And he's basically said as much, right? He's already made it very clear about his pro-choice position, and things like that. So that has angered a lot of the Republicans, and he and Trump don't get along. So the MAGA Republicans in Maryland are already mad at him anyway. When so they'll refuse to vote for him. But we are talking about potentially the critical Senate, seat that the Republicans need to control the Senate. So let's look at the bigger picture. Okay. It won't be the first time in our lifetimes that, you say, okay, I'm going to hold my nose and vote for this person because there's a bigger picture. There's more at stake than just whether or not I agree with this person 75, 80, 90% of the time.
And I think one of the key issues is going to be the preserving of the filibuster. And
Yeah.
Democrats are running basically, I guess, here. They're in a tough spot here because do they say we should get rid of the filibuster? But if they say that and Trump wins, Republicans take the House, keep the House, and take the Senate. Oh my gosh! I mean, Katie barred the door. They
Yeah.
can
No,
get all kinds of
we're gonna
photo
keep.
ID.
We're
Why
gonna,
don't you just photo ID? You got to get photo ID to vote. You know, I mean, it's just
honestly, let me tell you about the voting ID stuff. I tell you, I forgot my wallet. So I went to the bank and I showed them my government ID. It's a government ID, it's got, I've got security clearance. I got all this fun stuff, right? Did you know it is not a valid form of ID in banks, your federal ID? It's like, what do you want? It's a lot more secure than the driver's license, frankly. It's PIVed and all that stuff. But yeah, so I think we need it should be harder to vote than it is for me to take money out of my own bank account, frankly.
Oh yeah, I agree. Yeah. Absolutely.
Why it's like, and I tell you what it is. I don't get it as much. I did when I was younger. I got the impression they kind of resented the fact that I take, if I took more than say $100 out, they're kind of, you're taking so much more. Do you really want to use all that? I mean, they don't say anything. The look they kind of give you is like, do you really want to take that much money out? I'm like, I'm thinking like, it's my money. I can do whatever I want with it, But and also nowadays banks are closing left and right, frankly. So, but we've got we're actually coming up real close to final thoughts, but I do want to talk about about the latest about the Hunter Biden trial, which started this week. I have a feeling he's going to get off, frankly, on that charge. Don, Dave, your thoughts?
Well, maybe it's in Delaware. He's got a very good lawyer. So maybe, but I don't know if the warm feelings are there for the Bidens or not. I don't know in Delaware. But I mean, the jury's probably better than the jury that Trump would have had in Manhattan. So who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think I tend to agree with you, Dwight, that I think that he will get off. I don't know that the government, I don't know that there's a strong enough case against him for this. I mean, there's some pretty, I guess, salacious or sleazy things in Hunter Biden's background. But can they prove really that, beyond a shadow of a doubt, really, and then part of it is going to be dependent upon instructions to the jury too, right? I think that's what we saw with the Trump case, is that the judge, I think, really kind of boxed the jury in anyway in terms of where it was. He kind of basically set it up so that they would have to convict Trump on all those charges. The judge could do the same thing, in Hunter Biden case, but basically the opposite, setting up to acquit Hunter on this. I don't know. I just don't know if it's a strong enough case to say, yes, he absolutely positively lied when he bought the gun because he was a current drug user, and so, I think there's enough possibility for them to create doubt that the jury could acquit him. I mean, so I understand. I mean, the jury's made up of people who've, there's some gun owners there who may feel strongly about, gun ownership. It should be only to those people who are capable of, owning a gun, and people who are on drugs definitely shouldn't. But there are people who apparently have had family issues with drug abuse, and that could make them somewhat sympathetic to Hunter, who definitely has had a lot of problems in his lifetime with drug use. So, it's going to be a little bit of a wild card. Not quite sure where we're going. The media definitely, the liberal media, they're probably having a hard time dealing with this because this is not the kind of stuff that Joe Biden wants to see out there. But once again, Joe Biden did say that no one is above the law, so that should include his own son, right? So we shall see how this all plays out.
Well, it's kind of rules for and so on. But I think one. There's also, I'm surprised the defense has not said he was just high on crack. That's why he said he wasn't a drug addict. He was filling out the application.
Yeah, but I mean, in the testimony, I mean, from there's been testimony talking about his drug use, all right, and they, plus he had talked about some of these things, in his own book. So it's his own words are coming back to haunt him on these things. But is that strong enough to, can they make the tie for sure that when he applied and purchased the gun, was he a drug user? Absolutely, positively.
But I'll tell you this: if his name were, I do say this: if his name were Eric Trump or Don Jr. or Barron Trump, they'd throw the book at him.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But I guess the positive side of all this is that it once again legitimizes the laptop, right? Which had been so widely discredited by others.
Russian hoax. Yeah.
So it was like, no, there's something there.
And remember, Twitter blocked it, the New York Post story on the platform. So.
Right.
So. What's great about that is I ran that story through our club site. So it's the exact same story, but it was on our club site, and Facebook never blocked that because I think they were looking for New York Times in the URL, but
New York Post.
Yeah, New York Post. Yeah, there you go. So we are at final thoughts. I'll let you start, Dave. Final thoughts.
I had a good time yesterday in Maryland, in the Free State. With the Maryland GOP there, Montgomery County, pushing my book.
And you got to see a good chunk of our county driving up Georgia Avenue for several miles to the Beltway.
Yeah, I was a little concerned going back because Dwight had given me instructions, Georgia Avenue all the way down to 495, but it would just kept going on, and I don't remember it being that long, and I thought, did I go the wrong way? And then so you have to have that dilemma, do I turn back, go back that way in case? But Dwight messaged me and said, no, keep going. You got to keep going further. And
I think those pictures you sent me of the Wheaton Library, because I thought you may have gone on 108. That's why I say if you've gone on 108, just take 29 south, when you get to it.
But and then once you mentioned the Safeway, that Safeway office, but I saw that on the left, so I knew it was there. But so it was a great time. Yeah, thank you. And it was a great time seeing everybody. And so I hope to come back to the Free State. And yeah, that's about it. I just working hard on the book and keeping cool.
Final thoughts, Don Irvine.
Yeah, keeping cool. That's a good thought. It's been a hot May, June.
Yeah. Humid too. Today is not as bad, but it's still pretty hot.
Today we had a little breeze, which was nice, and we need a little bit of break after all those rains. And those tornadoes it was nutso because
did you see any where you were like?
I kept looking at. I was a little concerned because it's like there's a tornado coming from Poolesville to Germantown to Gaithersburg. Are you kidding me? And so I'm looking out the window and I'm like, I just see lots of wind and rain and whatnot. But where it did hit, I have friends who did get hit by that. I mean, had one of them, a huge tree fell down their backyard, crushed their trampoline. Now their kids are all great. They haven't probably used that trampoline in a while because their youngest is about to go off to college. But apparently the husband had been concerned about the tree leaning a little bit, and so he'd already got an estimate to cut it down. But then it fell down. I mean, but those same people came by. They called him up and says, "Now come by and chop it up, please." So it did.
Yeah.
Well, another friend of mine had a tree hit his house, but they weren't in the house while they were. But it just had this very narrow path, which is kind of like an old town, Gaithersburg, and then took a little bit of a turn, and that was it. But because I'm up early in the morning, and I'm like, okay. I looked around the neighborhood and like nothing there. And as I drove up to my gym in the morning, I'm like, looks like this was a clear path there. But I think it was a different story, towards Old Town where it hit. So, I'm glad that no one was killed by that, but they had a few people trapped in homes and some other issues and stuff like that. And it's kind of like, okay, I think they labeled that an EF1, so you can go
Or
to
0. They said it was 0 or a 1. Yeah.
yeah. So it wasn't, that's why it didn't, wreak more havoc, but still a little bit concerning. Just when I've been living in Gaithersburg for 20 years and have not seen this happen. I'm like, okay, I guess things may be getting a little bit too close to home right now with all of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And
also,
our friend Josephine, she was telling me the tornado went just a few blocks away from her house.
that actually would be true, I think, because
Because there was, I think,
it went up into the Deer Park area, and she lives over there. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, that's right.
yeah, she was telling me she was in the basement for the whole evening, terrified, but she is safe and she had no damage and stuff like that. But yeah, I can imagine being a scary, you living alone, being a scary moment, for you when you're elderly,
Yeah, no, it must have been something else for her. I did want to bring up Hogan once again, just only because it's interesting to me how how the way he's planned, he's got this campaign and he said all these things that have kind of been hitting right at the more liberal line, and then now he's got these pictures and sort of him with shaking hands with Reagan when he was younger, and it's like, so now he's pivoting. He's like, all right, I've done my ads or whatever, and photo ops for the liberals. I need to shore up the conservative vote. So here's my picture with Reagan. Right? It was I don't know. It's typical to me. It's typical politician pandering, kind of shifting. But but I see the targeting. I understand what he's trying to do. He's trying to win this election. So be it what it may for that. Maryland. We also have a trans man has won Miss Maryland USA.
I saw that and I thought it was a joke at first.
Yeah, I mean, I saw that and I did the same thing. I went back to look for more stories and I'm like, son of a gun, it looks like it's true. It's like, I can't believe this is happening to us.
That's in my book, my first book. That's what happens to Virginia. And the reason is it's ideological because it deals with objectifying. You can't objectify a biological woman. But if it's a trans woman, you can. So that's why I think eventually all the beauty contestants will be trans. I think all the swimsuit models will be trans. Sports Illustrated has already trotted that out. So not to be pessimistic, but I think that's the way
just by the very fact that the general acceptance of having the transgender athletes, right? Competing in where they're breaking the records and they're winning these races and basically taking women who were champions and now they're finishing second or third or whatever behind them. It's like, this is a very different world now, and it's just fraught with a lot of things. So there's a lot of fights going on about that, but it's just
but I don't think it's something that their public demands. It's something that's pushed from on high, from the intelligentsia. Right. They push that on us. But not to interrupt your father. But
no. I mean, I think that's right. So so her name or his name, Bailey Ann Kennedy. So we may be seeing more of Bailey. Well, I mean, we are. I think for what you're saying too is that we are marching towards that point where we will see, the majority of the beauty contestant pageants go that way, so that you will have a trans woman, transgender win the beauty pageant. It's like, I'm glad I'm 65 and on the downhill side of life because as much as I want to see my grandkids grow up and and battle back and fight this cancer off as long as I can, on the other hand, sometimes I shake my head and say, I don't know. It's like the world is just
but here's the thing, we can't be that pessimistic. I'm a half glass full guy. I remember the 1960s, Don, all the hippies, those hippy dippy liberals, burning the American flags in the streets. And we thought, we'd never, and then we elected President Reagan. We had a decade plus, 2 decades of conservatism for the most part. Even Bill Clinton, as liberal as he was, he governed like a Republican, he signed the crime bill.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
he
Well, yeah,
signed welfare reform.
welfare. I mean, Bill Clinton, because of the contract with America, Newt Gingrich,
Yeah.
when he's in office, he had to pivot, right? He's like, in
Yeah.
order for him to win re-election, everything like this, he took the ideas of the Republicans and made them his own. I mean, I think
God
Paris
bless those
Glendening,
Democrats with no ideas
I
at
think
all.
Paris Glendening did the same thing. Ellen Sauerbrey had been hitting on taxes and all the kinds of things like this, right? And so Paris Glendening basically took that and used that and took away that weapon from Sauerbrey on the rematch, right? So they will do that. The Democrats are very good about doing those kinds of things. So anyway, and my final thought is just Costco has made this, monumental decision, for at least for book publishers, for them, which is that they are going to discontinue selling books except during seasonal periods. And so book publishers are concerned, there's Costco stole a pretty good pipeline for selling books, except, my first reaction to this is that anybody who's gone to a Costco lately, the book section is tiny compared to where it used to be. It used to be like the whole kind of row, virtually. Now it's like 2 tables, right? So I'm like, how many books are they selling? I know they got a lot of stores and they're doing really well, but how many books can they be selling when they've reduced the book section to like a third or a fourth of what it used to be? So
yeah.
I went to a book signing at a Costco's when Herman Cain was running for president. He had his book out there in 2012. Herman Cain.
Yeah, well, they won't be doing any book signings.
Yeah.
Unless it's during the season. That's probably not going to happen.
Is Costco's plan to bring something new in, like or expand like their electronics section?
Every Costco is a little bit different, right? But I know, the one in Gaithersburg, the book section is just tiny. And how long has it been since they carried, DVDs? They stopped doing that, right? It's kind of like Best Buy. Watch how Best Buy, the CD section over the years, that shrunk. So they adapt to whatever people are doing. If the buying habits say, we're not going to be able to sell this many CDs, DVDs, or books, then free up the space for something else, because Costco, they run on relatively low margin, and they're looking for turnover.
Don, are you ready for the brownie brittle to come back to Costco's? I saw it at the Wheaton lot at the.
Oh yeah, I mean it's already on sale. I mean the sale ends on Sunday, but it's a different.
I didn't even realize it was on sale. I gotta look at their.
It's on sale for Sunday, but it's no longer the buy one get one that they used to do.
Yeah, I know, and the packaging is smaller too.
It's just $3 off. So instead of buying like the usual, I used to buy like 10 of those or whatever.
Yeah.
Or or get 10 of them. Buy 5 and get 5 or whatever it was. I bought one because it's like this is where inflation has impacted. It's like I'm not going to spend that kind of money on. I love brownie brittle, but I'm not going to spend that kind of money. Those discounts went away. I'm just not buying it anymore like that.
And also, the sizes. Remember, it used to be a much larger package of brownie brittle.
Oh, everything's much larger. Look,
Shrinkflation.
Look, my wife and I came back yesterday. We had taken our young sister missionaries to dinner at Cafe Ray up in Germantown, and my wife's like, I need something sweet, and I'm like, well, McDonald's app has got buy one get one hot fudge sundae, and my wife loves their hot fudge sundae. So we stopped by McDonald's and bought it, and I brought it to her in the car, and she looks at this thing and she's like, what happened to it?
I know.
You look at the cup. The cup has got to be, the cup has shrunk so much. I mean, it's probably shrunk by like another third, but the price is up about 20% since I last purchased one a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
It's like, so that's a huge increase. But I mean, I understand their costs have gone up. I mean, think about, the stories you've been seeing, right? California raised that minimum wage, right, to $20 for the industry, 10,000 layoffs, right? Restaurant closing, more automation. Hello, Gavin Newsom. You want to be president? I don't think so.
Yeah, no. Yeah, and it's a higher price with cheaper dollars. You're paying with cheaper dollars too,
That's
so it's
right.
like a higher price. Yeah.
Right. There's all those factors if you think about
Yeah.
it, if you understand that. Anyway, okay, enough pontificating. Let me go, Dwight.
Well, yeah. By the way, Costco's did bring back their lemon cake type things, the muffins with the icing. It's really good. You know,
Ice cream?
no, it's like a cake. It's their they're individual sized lemon cupcakes. Well, they're like this big. You know, they're like lemony flavored. It tastes really good, and they've also got a bunch of new things there. They got a great deal on televisions right now. I had to stop myself from buying a television because they had a 52-inch TV or 55-inch TV for like an insane amount of like $300, and I'm like, it's 4K. I mean, what am I going to do with another television set sitting in the box?
Yeah.
You know, what am I going to do with another one? You know, so I had to stop myself and not buy one of those.
You can get it for a gift for your buddy Dave.
I tell you, I might have one for you.
No, I'm just trying to be funny.
I tell you, years ago, Don, I bought 10 of the Reagan hats from the Reagan Ranch. And now I've got I think I have about 6 of them still left. So I've just liquidated those. I gave our friend Jason, Dr. Trott, is going to be leaving the state of Maryland to go to law school in Texas.
Really?
And, yeah, and let's not care. We're never seeing Jason again. He's going to stay out there in Texas, frankly, I bet. But I go, you go back to Texas, you need a 10-gallon hat. I've got one for you.
Didn't he buy the house just a couple of years ago or something?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So maybe he might actually do fairly well if he decides to sell it and just stay in Texas.
Yeah. I mean, he's going to be in the Dallas-Fort Worth area because he's at Texas A&M Law School. And I was telling you, if you're in Houston, I know a lot of people in Houston that are lawyers down there.
Yeah, I mean, he gets down there. The thing is that, the climate's not, is not a whole lot different than it is here, right? But
yeah,
you've got, you
winter.
You have no state income tax down there, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You may pay more for some other things, but you start getting used to a better political climate.
Yeah.
Maybe we see the Honorable Jason Trott as a U.S. representative somewhere or something down there.
Or you could run for Supreme Court in Texas. You could run for the Supreme Court there.
Well, I guess
Judge Trott, think about it, Jason. You could be a Supreme Court justice, and I think Arizona was like that too, because I think Sandra Day O'Connor, she would run for re-election when she was on the Arizona State Supreme Court.
Yeah, I thought she was a legislator, though. I didn't know it was running for a judgeship.
She ran for judge. She was because there was a 60 Minutes interview. Then again, who knows? They could have been making it up. After all, it was 60 Minutes. But she was talking about how she goes. She was actually leading the effort to not have judges elected.
Yeah.
And have judges be appointed than being, because she was saying, once you get on the bench, she goes, you got to start raising money to run for re-election again. It's like, being a legislator.
Yeah. And the judge doesn't represent the people. They represent the law. So it's not a matter of a democratic process, really, for that.
Mm-hmm. And my final thought is go out to Timonium Fairgrounds tomorrow. They've got the toy show there this year. They have a lot of cool stuff, a lot of vendors, a lot of interesting stuff. I've picked up a few things over the years there. I am toying around with the idea of going, but I'm not sure. But I'm about 80% that I'll go. Maybe not, But because I do need a haircut too, so I haven't had a haircut in about 3 weeks now, so I need a haircut. With that said, thank you everyone, and we'll see everyone next week. Oh, also, if you happen to live in PG County or in the vicinity, their Lincoln Day dinner is next Tuesday, and they've got a whole lot of rooms still. So if you want to go out, buy a ticket, and pay at the door. It's at Martin's Crosswind. Their speaker is going to be Congressman Darrell Issa. And now, with that said, goodbye, everyone. We'll see everyone next week. Take care. Good night.
Good night.